Here we go. All right. Hello. This is Lucky Sons on the Record, episode 3. Really racking up those episodes, aren't we? I'm Steve Price, your co-host, next to somewhere over there, Andy Pyra.
Yeah,
all right, Andy?
Good.
What's going on? Yeah, you looking sharp?
Yeah, I'm looking tired. Why not looking tired?
You are looking a bit ragged, I have to say.
What?
Little bit. Now, for all of our tens of followers out there, you'll have probably noticed we haven't actually been on the record recently. We're busy in the background doing some deals or dying trying. So we thought we'd take this opportunity to talk to some actual proper F1 content OGs who, unlike us, make great content consistently. It's a pleasure to have them both here together. Welcome to On the Record, Cameron F1 and BAXTYB. All right.
Hey, how's it going?
I got some claps there.
It's a privilege. It's a privilege. Let's go.
There you go.
How are we all doing, guys?
Right.
It doesn't matter how you're doing. No, I'm joking.
Oh, he's bought it on here.
What's that? What have I missed?
Oh my gosh, Andy, you don't get that reference.
He's just done the rock on you.
Oh my gosh.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
You gotta get
is that
that.
from all the WWE stuff?
Yeah. I'm a massive WWE fan. I normally get backstage shares with it. And it was only right to bring it on here and give you the guys. It doesn't matter. There's going to be loads of rock references.
I was more of a Randy Macho Man Savage or whatever his name was. You know, when the face was going to explode as he's talking.
Yeah. And a bit of Elizabeth. Yeah, partial.
I was a bit more Big Daddy, but that's like British wrestling from about 1989.
Yeah, I know who you're referring to.
Giant Haystacks.
Yeah,
Giant Haystacks. He was a big fella.
He was a legend. The ITV settings. Loved that.
I think there was a bit of Hulk when I was in my formative years, but I think even then I knew that wrestling, I don't know if I should say this, but wrestling's all bollocks. So,
well, there's a whole community out there that think that every sport's bollocks, actually, don't they? It's all scripted.
Wow. I mean, we can have that argument. And talking about F1, right?
Actually, I did actually introduce Baxty incorrectly. I think, isn't it supposed to be Sir Baxty? Sir Baxty.
Hey, thank you.
Guys, gets it. Love it.
All right, look, let's get straight into it then.
Steve, have you got your dictionary for when Cameron speaks?
Oh, behave. This fella.
I've got Google.
Google Translate. Yeah. I've got Google Dictionary up or whatever it is. Yeah, I did ask my kids to bring a dictionary back from school, but nobody was up for stealing it from the library, which is fair enough. I've taught them right, but you know.
It was a joke. There's a story to this, by the way. You know, my dad, when I was like 6 or 7, made me start to read the FT in the Observer, and I didn't know any of the words, so like I had a massive Chambers dictionary that I had to look up all the words in, and that's where me talking nonsense and in a way that's overly verbose comes from. So.
I've got a story a bit like that, but it doesn't end like that. Andy, do you remember the newsagents opposite Longfield railway station?
Yeah.
Everyone used to go there before school. So when I was in lower 6, I realised, because I'm so old, Andy's a couple of years younger than me, I'm so old that if you wanted a gentleman's magazine, porn, you had to buy it from a shop. And this was pre-internet. And so I worked out that in that newsagents, if you bought an FT or a Times, and while he wasn't looking, you swiped a couple from the top shelf and put them inside the Times and put it down. You bought the Times, and then you sold the porn mags at school.
That's what I was going to say. To be fair, there were resellers at school.
I was like a very early eBay, basically, and they weren't used mags, just sold them straight out. So,
ingenuity, endeavour.
There you go.
Love it.
Is that on the record enough for you? I'll probably get arrested now.
You just broke some news there, mate. Like, you boys went to college together. I love that.
School. Yeah.
We were at school together.
Let's go.
Our sisters were best mates growing up.
So you guys go way
and they
back.
hate each other now, but
well, not that we're aware of.
Never,
from outside of the family.
Truth get in the way of a good story. Eh?
No,
That.
We had our first job at the same shit pub together. So there you go.
Did you boys go grammar school? What do I think?
No, dear. No, our school was so bad they bulldozed it and built a Barrett's home on top of it.
Standard. That happens. I think that happened to my school by now. If it has,
it was in Kent. It doesn't really. There were some good schools. We just didn't go to any of them.
I don't know why I thought that you boys went grammar school.
We went to school in between Dartford and Gravesend.
Yeah.
A place called Longfield.
Yeah.
I've got a family in Gravesend.
Have you?
So
Have you?
Yeah, my dad grew up in Gravesend.
It's such an unfortunate name. I always thought they should really rebrand it because it goes back to the days of the plague. Like, come on, we have moved on.
Yeah.
I think it just needs a bit of a refresh, like Grave Starts, or
just
make it a bit more positive.
That's my dog
of an oxymoron, though, right?
Yeah, so
oh, is
my
it?
dog choking.
Right.
But anyway, sorry.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have got a question. So let's get into it. So as creators, I assume that this kind of you probably love the off season. A little bit of time to reset, but it's kind of the uglier the better, right? And I think this off season has proven to be very memorable.
When you say the uglier the better, Steve, it depends very much on context. There, what are we talking about, bro?
Well,
which type of content are we talking about?
There hasn't been a lot in the Bet F1 before the first race, but I don't know. Would you have preferred a little bit more time to reset and recover before you go into the longest Formula One calendar ever? You've got 24 races until what start of December.
Oh, put like that. Go on, Baxty.
That's a long one, isn't it? Yeah. Well, nothing happened at the end of the season. Like this is just season ended. We all went off into the distance and didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, and January was quiet as well, not a lot going on. And then all of a sudden it's like Andretti get rejected. Then Lewis is going to Ferrari and it all just blew up in the space of 24 hours. It's like, oh my God.
That's got to be music to your ears, though, as creators. Or would you prefer a little bit more downtime to sort of reset, reschedule, or do whatever a creator would do in their off time?
Go ahead, Cameron.
I think it was a bit impromptu, but I think Lewis' move in particular was one of those ones where like a rising tide floats all boats, right? And so all of a sudden, like I got texts from mates that I haven't spoken to for 10 years messaging me saying, Cameron, what's going on? Is this real? Are we going to see Lewis in red overalls or whatever? And so it was one of those ones where all of a sudden you get like views on YouTube are just crazy. So you've kind of got to, it's like pens down, get to it, because there are views out there so long as you're just making the content. And F1 for a while now hasn't been like that since Max Verstappen. Like, what's the story shy of Max Verstappen? He's setting new levels for excellence, and Lewis doesn't have the. It's like the same old. Do you know what I mean? It's the same old narrative that we've almost been cycling through and trying to dream up a story that people will click on. So it was a breath of fresh air. Brundle said it best. I think it was a much needed injection of newness and kind of mainstream appeal that F1 needed. So to your question, Steve, your original one, could I have done with, I mean, you can never have enough holiday, right? But a lot of the big content creators, they don't stop. They're 1-2 a dayers. So I stopped temporarily, but probably shouldn't have if I wanted.
So when you stop, what would you typically do? Do you just switch off of F1 completely? I mean, are there sort of other sports that you follow, or do you just sort of just switch off sport and just sort of reset and get yourself prepared? Or do you follow football? Is it what would you or are you just working day and night with whatever your daytime job is as well?
All of the aforementioned, if I'm honest with you. So working as an accountant, which is typically fairly long hours. And then my dad I guarantee if I'm back in Birmingham at my folks' house, Dad will be watching some Rumble in the Jungle or some like, or Shergar or something. Like, do you know what I mean? If it's not horse racing, it'll be boxing or some craziness rerun he'll be watching. So I will always be seen watching a sport or UFC or AJ versus Ngannou. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll always be dialed in, because that's how I enjoy my time. If I'm honest, if it's not F1, it'll be something else. So I should switch off though, and it's a good shout, mate. Like, sometimes you kind of need to put the phone down and just completely dial out. But I don't tend to do
Well, I
that
suppose
very
it
often.
depends on how you sort of consume it, or how you look at or the reasons behind consuming it. I think sport's important because it's not important. It's a way of people managing, or it's a way of people switching off for those 90 minutes during a football match or a 2-hour Grand Prix or whatever. And that's what sport's always done really well. It just sort of separates real life from reality. And I think because there's so much news coming out from sport, sport needs it. It needs noise, and so it really sort of just grabs hold of you, and it can take control of your life. But at the same time, it's quite interesting. Sort of the stories from off the track and the shenanigans that go on. It sort of really does sort of hook you in. So it's difficult to switch off, especially if it's a passion. It's almost impossible to switch
100%.
off, because that's part of what sport is now. As much as people don't like to say it's it's a form of entertainment. It is a form of entertainment because people want to enjoy it. What about you, Baxty? What would you do?
Well, I was very fortunate. I actually had quite a big singing job on New Year's Eve, so I kind of had that to focus on and doing my other, various jobs that I do, be it singing or working for my dad's software company. But like, I made a very conscious decision not to run any spaces after Abu Dhabi, because I just thought, let's just have a break. Didn't want to spend late nights. I'd spent a lot of time away from home last year as well on the singing track, and it was just nice to actually spend time with Mrs. Baxty, because I was away. We worked it out. I was away 6 months of the year last year, and it was a long time to be away. So it's quite nice just to switch off and just be at home. And whilst I had this gig coming up, I could work on that, but then also just decompress from what was quite a heavy year, not just on the content side, but also on the singing side as well.
Because I mean, the content, I don't know the ins and outs of your processes, but it's quite consuming. No? I mean, you've got to be aware of the news that's coming out. You've got to digest it, research it, try and fact check it, then record it, then edit it, then push it out. I mean, I don't know how you do it so regularly, because is it as consuming as I think it is for you?
Mate,
both?
Every bit of it's. It can be. I suppose it depends how seriously you want to take it as well, right? Like, if you want it ultimately in the next 24 months, hopefully I'll be doing this full time, and I'll be able to pay my mortgage and my debts and everything else, and a bit of private school tuition. So you're
going back to school, are you?
Yeah, much retake my SATs and my GCSEs, mate. Is what I need.
Well, your kids go to school in Kent as well. Private school, best.
Oh my god! But I think the god tier content creators almost pre-plan. So, like, if I take Tomo for example, I was speaking to him and he was like, okay, so livery review. I was like, mate, livery launches, I just don't care. Like, I'm not gonna. What do I care other than Mercedes that I might live stream for? The rest of them, I'm not really fussed. And he was like, mate, that's my busiest time of the year.
Really,
mate? Because he's got because he's a bit of a graphic designer. Every time they drop a livery launch, he'd review it in real time with his 300,000 subscribers or whatever, and then he'd redesign it. It's got this graphic design software. It'd be like, right, so Mercedes have done this, and I think they've gone a bit too heavy on the dark colours there, and he'll say, this is what I think it should look like. And he's boshing these out. So he's done 10 livery designs in the space of 10 days. I'm like, clearly I'm not working hard enough. Some of them, Aldas, as another example, he boshes out like 3 well-edited 20-minute videos a week. It's like, how do you even do
And
that?
is Tomo full time? Is Aldous? Is he? Are they full time?
Yeah, Tomo and Aldas are both full time at the moment, and getting revenue from, obviously they're both on Sky Sports from time to time, contributing to their podcast, for which they'll get a fee, obviously. But yeah, they're nailing it. And Young Guns as well. I think Tomo might have just turned 30. Imagine that.
But I suppose that's that tipping point that you kind of alluded to, which is, you know, both of you got day jobs, and then you have to kind of fit this in. It's like having, you know, 3 or 4 jobs, because you're not just sitting in front of a camera and someone delivers a script or all the research, and you just go boom, right, camera on, done, and then some brilliant editor sits in another room and someone distributes it. You kind of just constantly on it. I mean, it's it's kind of, I guess, trying to get to that point where it can either contribute heavily or become your day job, which in the dream world, in my head, I'm thinking, oh yeah, if you then get to that stage where you do that, life should become a bit easier. But what will happen is you'll consume all the space you had with your day job with even more 100%. Stuff that you do now. So
that's exactly,
I imagine.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way. I took some time off work to try and do these long form edited videos, and that's exactly what happened, right? Scripting took me about, a good script, 2,000 words would take me like 2 to 3 days. Yeah. And then pulling together the footage, reading the script, and then the edit was like 5 days, and then take a weekend off and straight back into it. But even that, like, was that even the right sort of content for me as a person who like loves the sound of my own voice? Potentially not, and you just never can tell, right? There's no panacea for the algorithm. There's no right answer. You just got to kind of keep testing and learning. So,
but I mean, Baxter, I know that when I listen in sometimes to the Spaces stuff, never mind when I, you know, have on the rare occasion contributed. I mean, those are late nights in the end. I know, like tonight, when we finish this, I'll be like, you know, I'll have a little bit of telly and then I'll go to bed. You know, when there's those Spaces, I'm wired when I've come off those things, and I can't go to sleep.
No. I mean, I always do them late for us here in the UK because quite a lot of my listeners are from North America, so it's convenient to catch those guys. And I mean, I kind of there was a point when I just started hosting where I'd be going to like 1, 2 in the morning, and then I thought, no, this is completely unsustainable. So it's like I give myself a bit of a hard cut off of 1 a.m. That's it. No more, like, just,
you know what I mean?
Done. Yeah, absolutely done.
But are you wired after it? Are you still sort of, you're on a bit of a high? Yeah, so
it's like coming off stage, because coming off stage, you got all the adrenaline of that. You're wired, you know, and you're just like, it takes me a good hour or 2 to kind of come down from that. Slightly less on Spaces, but it's good fun. But you're constantly on as well, because you're taking requests from people who want to come in and speak, and then you're kind of looking for interesting tweets to put into that you can then use as talking points and everything else. So it doesn't take as much planning as a video, but it's, you know, sometimes I can just go, it's 9:30, I fancy a space, let's go. Or other times it's a bit more planned than that. Like, okay, I'm going to do a space on this day at this time, and
Those Baxty spaces. Anytime I see the Baxty space pop up, I'm like, Baxty, can't you just make it earlier, bruv? Because we're going to be going at least 3 hours back and forth. That's like my night's worth of sleep destroyed. I'm in a doghouse from the missus because I'm not talking to it. Like, it's just like trying to avoid and divorce. Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, the 10 o'clock start time is my way to avoid and divorce. So
because the missus have gone to bed.
Exactly, yeah.
It's techie, you know, Baxter. This is unsustainable, bro. I'm telling you.
But does she not question you?
It really is.
As in, you know, is it really worthwhile starting a Spaces at 10 o'clock? Yeah. What about? Do you not fancy sitting down and watching a bit of a rerun of Coronation Street, or with me on the sofa, or something along those lines?
No. She's happy for me to do it as long as she knows when I'm doing it, and I just say, look, I'm doing a space this time. She's like, yeah, cool, that's fine. Yeah, just don't be too late.
You've got to 1 a.m. You've got to have a good woman, Baxty. I think that's a prerequisite in all of this content creation. If my missus wasn't so bloody strong and capable and superwoman-esque, then this just wouldn't work. A different woman would have gone, what are you on about, Cameron? No.
I remember when we did that Spaces, I think was it October or November?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I told Emma, my missus, but there was a point, and I was sat in here, like, so that no one else would be disturbed in the house. And I remember she came in, I think we were still going at like 11:30 in the evening. I know it went on for about 2.5 hours. I remember at one point, I was on mute, thankfully. I think someone else, Andy, was talking. And I turned around and she was just stood in the doorway, like half asleep, going,
yeah, it's true. What are you doing?
I'm still on. She's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, no, I had to show my phone. I was like, no, we're still doing it.
What's going on? It's
well,
not.
I think after that one that we did, I think I might have lay in bed and listened to the rerun with the wife, to be honest, for 2.5 hours. Because
but what's that about, Andy? Like,
no, but because it is bonkers. But at the same time, I'm certainly not used to sort of speaking on camera, or doing interviews and things like that. So it's part of it is to, as much as we all hate the sound of our own voices, you kind of got to, you sort of got to get match fit in a way, haven't you? You've got to see whether or not your preparation worked or it didn't work, or what you can do differently next time, etc. And kind of like the adrenaline was going anyway, so it's like, well, I'm probably going to be awake for the next 3 hours anyway.
May as well listen back and have a cheeky self-critique. And it always sounds different to how you heard yourself the first time.
Oh, yeah.
It's really weird that there are all these things like, I've got so many peculiarities when I watch myself back, the bloody stuttering and chopping my sentence halfway through to try and start again and find the better way of saying the bloody same thing for no reason. Like,
that's interesting because I know that I stutter, and I know that sometimes I struggle to get my words out. And you saying that, and from me listening to you or Baxty or even Steve, I never hear any of that.
Oh, I do it all the time, bruv.
I do
all the time.
Yeah.
The very worst one. Done it there again. Did you hear me?
Yeah.
The very worst. Why just finish off your sentence, Cameron? FFS, like, mate, it's really annoying. But yeah, you got to listen to yourself and self-critique.
Yeah, but I think that's because, and this isn't a slight on you, Andy, but when you sit and edit these, you end up listening to the same tiny little bits so many times that, and then when you listen back to it, you hear yourself in a different way. But oh my God, I mean, I loathe the sound of my own voice. So when I have to sit in an edit and try and cut stuff down, that's why I'm trying to do as little editing on these as possible. Just sheer laziness and just wanting to bang it out and not worry too much about it. Otherwise, you're just constantly listening to the same little clip and then trying to find a little bit where you can nudge it out.
Can I ask a question, Steve?
Yes.
Why are you editing this podcast? Like, what's the?
Oh no, sorry. So I don't. Okay, so
what's there to edit? Sure, you just put out the pod and everyone's talking and then you're done, right? Maybe a cheeky.
Yeah, no. Ordinarily, so the Trill Sessions one, the one that we did on Spaces, I didn't really edit those, but I had to take out the audio, put them into After Effects. I won't get too techie about that. The only reason I had to edit the last one with Quick Stop F1 was because Nash's connection was so bad, bless him, that his video and audio cut out and it wasn't even captured on Riverside. So I had to put all of them in and then work out which bits of him we'd missed based on what we were saying, going, oh, he's dropped out. It took me about a week to like just get it all together and then put it together. So, and then as I was in it, I was like, well, I'll just tweak little bits, but I don't actually edit these.
That occasion, I did feel sorry for you, Steve, but I still went to bed.
Is that something to do with authority again? Is that hierarchy? Yeah.
Oh, was it not working, Steve? Oh, never mind. You'll be all right. Don't worry. Anyway, speak to you tomorrow. You'll figure it out.
Well, on the record, we basically started it, and kudos again. I'll give Tandy the credit for coming up with a name for hour series rather than chill sessions, what it was before. But it's intended to be basically like a no holds barred proper chat, unless it is about F1 teams that we're sniffing around, in which case Andy and I will be allowed to use our safe word, which for tonight is Gunter.
Let's go.
But now you're both F1 fans, right? First and foremost. But how does an accountant and an opera singer meet and start co-hosting Camera's Shakedown show? We need to know.
Baxty details.
So I remember exactly when it was. It was the weekend of the Singapore Grand Prix in 22, and I was down south on a singing job, and my parents were staying at my parents' house, but they were away, and I was just looking for something to do. And so I popped into a space earlier, but hadn't spoken, and then I saw another one running. I thought, yeah, what the hell not? Let's go. Let's pop in and have a listen.
Racking them up.
And then I thought, yeah, let's. What's the worst that could happen? I could go on the mic, be absolutely useless, and never do it again. But I quite enjoyed it. And then, he said my bit, and then got a message from Cameron on DM saying, like what you're about, let's try you on the podcast sometime. I have said this to Cameron before. I literally thought it was somebody trolling. I thought it was like a spam, bot account. I thought, there's no way he's messaging me. And then I was like, oh, actually, he is. And then we spent a few weeks going back and forth because you wanted to get me on earlier than I initially did, but I did the really inconvenient thing of going on holiday for a week. And then
holiday, what's that?
I know, right? Yeah,
Were you aware of Cameron when he got in touch before he got in touch with you?
No, it was the first time I'd come across him. I was kind of getting more and more into the F1 social media side, and I'd heard of Tomo and Aldis and stuff, and the old WTF1 or the old WTF1 now, whichever rebrand they've gone through now. But it was great, and I watched a couple of episodes of the Shakedown, kind of watched shares and a couple of interviews with Peter Windsor as well, and then what I thought would be a one-time thing, Cam was like, oh, give me your number, I'll be in touch. And he was like, right, you're on next week. And it's kind of just kept snowballing from there, really. It was good fun. Yeah.
So you're not neighbours, basically?
Yeah.
No.
No. We live at completely different opposite ends of the country. But
So, Baxty, where are you?
I'm up in Yorkshire.
You're in Yorkshire. Cameron, where are you?
Yeah.
Southeast.
Southeast? Who the fuck is Southeast?
Southeast.
Who the fuck is South London?
Mate, Bromley, that's near Chislehurst.
Just Chislehurst.
Oh, you
No.
No, it's near Chislehurst, where and Andy had a girlfriend there.
Where are you? Edit that bit. Where are you, Steve?
Not editing fuck all, mate.
I love it. But no, I heard Baxty. It's rare that Twitter Spaces can be a bit of a cesspit sometimes. Super toxic, tribal. You guys get the memo. It's all like the same old. No, Max Verstappen is the greatest and Lewis is the worst driver that I've ever seen. Or conversely, Lewis is the greatest thing and he's Jesus Christ reincarnated. Max Verstappen is I'm just like, mate, the truth is somewhere in the middle, and Spaces, I kind of recoiled from Spaces a little bit just because I don't need the haranguement. But Baxty was one of a very few voices that kind of spoke with, wasn't too dry. Not dry at all. Baxty's got loads of personality. Speaks super well.
Sir Baxty,
this
is true. Get it right, Cameron. Sort your life out, mate. So
really disrespectful. Sorry, Sir Baxty.
It's going to stick you those days. So speaks really well, super engaging and non-toxic. And those three things are like the holy trinity as far as F1. You just don't even get that in one person ever in F1. So I was like, let me reach out and see if Baxty wants to do this regular Thursday catch-up talking about all things in the F1 news cycle.
Do you actually get to meet up in person at any time? Or is that just impossible because of work schedules and your content schedules as well?
We've met a couple of times when I've been down for singing work, and we also did the last lap as well. But then Shez moved to Australia, didn't he? So that made that.
Yeah, which could well have been the death of the shakedown, right, as we knew it. But Shez wakes up at like 2 a.m. or whatever every week to bosh it out.
I didn't realise he was in Australia.
Yeah, absolute hero. Yeah,
he's a legend. So he's up at like 4. I want to say it's 5 a.m. in reality to just chew it up, man. And I used to watch Andy, you're like this. I used to watch a show called the MMA Beat, hosted by a chap called Ariel Helwani. It was just like a series of MMA journalists who, it was almost like and F1 does this as well, not so much of late, but it was almost like the Grand Prix would end on Sunday and people would act like F1 doesn't exist again until free practice on next Friday. So I was like, similar thing to the MMA Beat. That was their genesis story. What about the midweek news cycle? So I just wanted to do something on a Thursday with other decent F1 minds who can tell me where challenge me and tell me where I'm talking rubbish from.
It's funny, isn't it, that you can sort of learn from boxing because F1's not doing, or MMA because F1's not doing it. You would think it would be the other way around, but in actual fact, I take a lot of what I learned from my sort of sports promotion and boxing days into what we're doing as Lucky Sons. But you would think it wouldn't work like that. Because for boxing or MMA or anything combat, such a grubby sport, or perceived to be a grubby sport, it's like, what could you learn? What could Formula One learn from that? And there's an element of truth to that, but at the same time, you'll find sort of grassroots. There's a certain grubbiness that really sort of can belong into F1 if it's done legitimately. You would never expect that.
I think there's a gazillion lessons that F1 still has to learn. I mean, Eddie. I'll tell you this story. Eddie recruited one of my mates who was a bit of an MMA journalist as a consultant to try and pick up things from the US, like music between rounds as an example, to try and make it into a party atmosphere, right? Boxing never used to do that. And I think F1's got a gazillion lessons to learn from combat sports as far as making it more entertaining, more fan-friendly for those guys who are paying thousands of pounds to go and see the track in person.
Right? I think my idea for the fucking livery launches wasn't a bad one.
Go on, detail.
I think they should leave it until the first day or the day before testing, or do it on the first day of testing and make a fucking show out of it and release the cars in reverse, or so that Haas would have to go first, but you do the launch in each garage and just get the cars out. Fuck all this, because some of them did it okay. Then you got what is Sauber called again?
Steak, medium rare.
Steak.
Yeah.
steak, green steak in a church or wherever it was, and then then you got Williams, who went all the way over to New York but didn't really do a New York thing. It just seemed a bit. I mean, and the amount of money that they're spending on this stuff, I think it should just become part of the show that celebrates the launch of that season.
There's always been. So I've always felt that it should be done centrally, or should be hosted centrally, or managed centrally, or whatever. But there's always that thing where the teams think they're more important than the other team, or they're always trying to constantly look to get one up on their main competitor or whatever. And I think sort of that whole interest around the launches now sort of seems to be sort of disappearing, because everybody realizes it's not the car, it's just a livery launch. And now it's all been relabeled a livery launch. So now you're just looking at a car design and sort of just the interest. There's so many fucking LED lights everywhere. There's all this smoke machines, LED lights, or a minute video clip. It's just I think the right person grabs hold of that. They could turn that into one hell of an event. But I think it's very political.
Yeah, I think so.
In terms of, because you just said, the 10th team goes out first. Well, maybe Haas want to do it on their own. Or sorry, did I just assume that Haas were going to come 10th there? But maybe they want to do it on their own because they want to maximise their exposure and blah blah blah. It's just very political, and I don't think the Formula One teams would ever agree to anything like that, because they've already got the pecking order of the paddock is all about finishing position. Where your motorhomes are is all about finishing position from the previous season. And I think that's probably sort of hard enough for them to accept. And I think it would be a great idea. it'd be the best idea for the sport. I just think politically, you've got no chance of them anybody ever agreeing to that, unless it's written, solidly written in stone in the next Concord agreement. And I'm not sure that that's probably be deemed important enough to be put in a Concord agreement. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
they got sponsors to satisfy as well.
Exactly.
They want to peacock their new sponsors as well. It's like, oh, we signed a deal with.
Yeah, but the difference would be though, Baxty, is that this way every team would be guaranteed a set amount of airtime, whereas I don't know. Haas didn't really do a launch, did they? They didn't do a big thing.
They did a video, and it was a livery launch at that.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas this way, they wouldn't actually really need to spend any money, and they'd be guaranteed whatever the audience was that's watching on the TV.
Yeah.
And also get people into the Bahrain circuit rather than having empty stadiums. Sell tickets to it. Make it a thing.
I think though, Steve, if you were again putting on a content creation cap. This is the reason why. Do you guys watch Uncle Shay Shay? Those Cat Williams.
No.
All right, let me. So I'll try and summarize. There's a dude called Shannon Sharp in America, and again, I feel like we take a lot of our lead from what's going on in the States as far as like YouTube and podcasting and sports debate shows, and this dude was he's like a Hall of Fame American footballer, massive dude like this. And he, as a lot of them do, he transitioned from, when he retired, American football into sports broadcasting. So I think he was on ESPN for a bit, and then he moved across to Fox. And he had a show with Skip Bayless where they were just going back and forth. And then he decided, I'm going to set up my own podcast. So we do this podcast now for a couple of years. And he got this comedian on called Cat Williams. And Cat Williams is just super rogue and just started went on this massive diatribe in just basically saying how all the other comedians that he's worked all his life with are either like crack addicts or scumbags or whatever.
The ungrateful bastards that would say anything about Cube's payment, you shouldn't even talk to them anymore. Like, you don't go to Goodwill. You don't go to a Goodwill thrift store and go, look at all this cheap-ass shit. Why don't you shut up? Why don't you shut up? You could have went to Hermes. Why you didn't go to Balenciaga? Why you didn't get a bowl of the Balmain? You want to have that conversation? Right.
This video, chaps, did just completely break the internet. I want to say it's probably on 50 million views now.
I saw that one.
Unbelievable. Completely changed the game. And the only reason why I bring that up, because he obviously posted the full podcast, which did 50 million. Everybody's already seen that, but now he's clipped, he clipped it, made about 6 or 7 different clips. And now he's got a package deal, right? Portion that, kick those out to YouTube again. And I think it's similar with the livery reveals, because why would you not? You've got a piece of content there. And each of the teams can do their own livery reveals, even if it's they can do whatever they want. It's a video that they can release on Twitter, or I don't know, a proper livery launch that's 30 minutes or whatever. I don't know why, if I were a team, why I would not take that opportunity to package up a bit of content that millions might watch, or tens of thousands might. Well, you don't know, right? But
I think Red Bull have tried to do that. They did it couple of last season or the season before with a Palomine actually that was doing it, and I think there's a danger that it gets very corporate. There's a danger that it just really becomes a sponsorship launch. There's a danger that it just becomes about corporate messaging. Maybe that's the reason why they don't do it. But there's a real opportunity to do something really fucking cool, and I think that the sport misses an absolute trick with this.
Yeah,
I remember watching. I tuned in to see the steak one just because I was curious to see if they were, going to be doing anything that we thought they might be doing. And I think, I don't know, I felt sorry for Naomi Schiff, who I really rate, but I think she, it's just it becomes exactly like Andy said. It became like this kind of corporate presentation where you've got, the team principal coming out trying to memorize his words, and they've got auto cues, and it just feels so staged and awkward. Added to which, all of the weight saving nonsense. If the teams weren't at the current time preoccupied with using as little paint as possible, not all of them, but some of them, and actually we're able to kind of throw actual liveries, colours, designs onto the cars, that would make it more interesting. If you compare any of the F1 liveries to the fucking awesome stuff that's going on in WEC with all of the new manufacturers in there, or you look at IndyCar, I've never really loved a lot of the liveries there, but even they this year have like really gone to town because they don't have that weight restriction that they're all trying to come in under. But yeah, I think that would make it at least more interesting if we could return to that, so we can actually see some, fucking cool liveries.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just looking at the numbers online, and like the Sky Sports. Oh, look, there it is. So the Oracle Red Bull Racing, the official one, it was 30 minutes long, and it's done 800,000 views. So to take that away, it's not a massive amount of money, right? But to take that away is when it's just there anyway. It's like it's just low hanging fruit income that you can just put out a video and capture, right? So
exactly.
I don't know.
I think you touched on it earlier, actually. I think it was you, Andy. It doesn't really matter. It's quite interesting, like the switch between, have you guys, your roles or status that have you had to kind of retrain how you consume news that comes out of F1, because you've probably gone, if it's fair to say, you've kind of gone from just being fans to being, fans that the F1 community kind of relies on. So, kind of to break things down and flip that into the what and why, are you having to kind of retrain your brain a little bit as to how you kind of consume the content that's coming out?
Yeah, absolutely. When I read a news story, I'm very careful about sharing it, just to be like,
yeah,
okay, yeah, let's keep that. Just give it a bit of time. Just quickly read into it. Yeah, because look, there's such a massive thing with content farming and getting engagement, just misleading headlines and everything else. So I try and read an article beforehand. Unless it's from somewhere like Autosport or Motorsport. Sometimes they can be a little bit misleading as well, but not as bad as other ones. Who need the engagement to
bait clicks.
to boost. And so you do have to be careful, and a lot of that content also forms part of my spaces as well. So I've got to be like, right, okay, if it's a non-race space, I can be like, right, okay, so what am I going to talk about on that? So it is difficult, because you don't want to go two-footed and then have everyone in the comments below just going like, mate, that's not right. That's what are you doing?
Well, I even saw someone today talking about how DTS Drive to Survive has really struggled, or it was their opinion that DTS had struggled because of the constant social news of F1. They've probably had to dig a bit deeper over the last 6 years to extract the story and actually make something around it. So they've had to, that's why I think the focus has always been, but it's definitely now more on the stuff that you never see in the media, or you never see on the media coverage and the races.
Steve, it's really interesting that to your first question, Steve, about like kind of, I suppose, a pseudo retraining, almost like a pseudo journalistic integrity thing, right? Like when I kicked off in content, I want to say 2016, on and off. Like the first 3-4 years of that tenure was like super. I treated myself as a journalist. I didn't want to talk about anything unless I knew it was ironclad and I had 2 sources double checked. But ultimately, I'm not a journo, right? I was where BAXTYB'S is now, and those guys won't even talk about Christian Horner right into the investigate. Well, but not massively. But until it's bottomed out, and I think that's quite responsible even. But you see, me, guys, I'm kind of like if I'm going to take this as seriously as I want to use this to feed my family and pay my mortgage, like, do I need to be like all buttoned down for every single story? Because ultimately, I'm going to put out. I did a bit of analysis. I got my accounting cap out the other day, and I said something to the effect of, there are only, I think there've only ever been 4 drivers champions who've won at Lewis. When Lewis joins Ferrari next year, he'll be 40, right? At 40 years or older, I think there's only been 4: Fangio, Brabham, and a couple. Not Mansell, Graham Hill, or 3. I said 3. And Windsor, when I was interviewing him, he said, "Well, Cam, how old was Giuseppe Farina when he won?" I was like, "What, you mean that dude in 1950?" I was like, "I checked, but I don't think." He's like, "No, you might want to check that again." And I was like, "Oh shoot, he was 44. Yeah, I'd got it wrong." So I think the Aesop's fable of the story, there will always be a mistake or an F1 being F1. The fans that's what they live for, right? Oh, Cameron, but what about this in Sector 2? He was 0.1 and not like, do you know what I mean? Like,
well, most of the journalists make an awful lot of mistakes.
We've been talking about it on the Shakedown a lot of late. There's one in particular we could talk about offline, but he's like, I know for a fact that some of his stuff has just been factually incorrect. I took one of his screenshots with the bloody testing times, and it was like I tweeted it and everyone was like, massive engagement, everybody was retweeting it. Instead of 137, he'd put 127, and now I'm vicariously responsible for churning out his incorrect cannon fodder. It's chaos.
So Baxter, you find yourself holding back, but Cameron, you don't find yourself holding back. You'll talk about anything and everything that you want to talk about, because
of late, Andy, I'm thinking I just don't. Not that I don't care, but I'm not gonna spite my bank account for trying to be too buttoned up and prudent, right? Because ultimately, look at Christian Horner's a brilliant example, right? This allegation stuff, I'm betting in 3 weeks. Well, it's going to come out soon in the next couple of days. Like, the investigation's closed now, so by the end of this week, I'm betting that this will have all gone away, and he's going to carry on earning his like 20 million a year or whatever he is. And do you know what I mean? Whether or not I put out a piece of content on what was going on in real time is just it's so inconsequential. It doesn't matter, you know?
But do you find, but when you see a headline, do you find yourself sort of analysing that news story a little bit deeper than what you were doing before you become content creators? Because there is a community out there that does rely on you guys breaking it down. And so do you feel like you have to be a little bit, or come across, no, it's going to sound stupid, but come across a lot more intelligent or informed than what you actually are, or do you change slightly or not?
I've got a story about this actually. In my space, I did space last week, and somebody said, "Oh, have you seen this story about Audi potentially in trouble again?" And they sent the article, and I had a quick read through it whilst people were talking, and actually the article was like Audi and doubts about Audi, and I thought, oh God, not again. So then I thought, right, let's read it, let's have a look. And then I literally just went on the space. I said, I know this is being recorded, guys, but this is a crock of shit. Like, because what it was is there's some boardroom shenanigans going on as you get at these multi-million, multi-billion pound companies. And there's some restructuring going on at board level, but actually it doesn't suggest anything that they're going to pull the plug on the F1 project. It's just somebody's being moved to a different area and everything else. And basically they're kind of cleverly wording the headline. So in real time, I was having to kind of read this story and then go, okay, that's not quite what they say it is. And it is difficult because you want to kind of read that and go, oh no, Audi are going to pull out. Oh my God. Cause I'm really interested to see that project. But at the same time, you want to be like, I don't want people to start going down a path that is actually not there. And you got to pull them back and just be like, no, that's not.
But then I suppose, it kind of depends on how you assess that situation, because I know Cameron probably thinks, well, according to the video that Cameron uploaded this afternoon, when you're listening to his dulcet tones where you just sort of want to melt like chocolate being heated up in a microwave, that I will refuse my wife. She will not be allowed to listen to that video. She'll just melt away.
I think microwave is a disservice. His voice is more like, melting chocolate over Bain Marie. Like
not in my house, not in my kitchen. It's in a microwave.
Dip the strawberries in.
Yes. Yes. Oh, we're getting romantic.
You analyse that slightly different, Cameron, right?
Yeah. So I lifted and dropped from this trusted source / newsletter, and he insinuated that potentially it could mean. So I think what I leveraged there was that this has happened in the past before, right? So, for example, I think the talk was of, I think Mercedes at one point, there was a massive reshuffle, and the dude that took over as CEO he didn't quite fancy F1. Similarly at Renault, going back some years now, when Adrian Newey was complaining about the engine unit and them not prioritizing an efficient, powerful engine unit. When I'd had a chat with the CEO, and he was just in F1 because he'd been told that, do you know what I mean? It just wasn't a priority for him at all. So I was kind of connecting my historic dots more than reading the article that I'd read, which said basically what Baxty said, that there's been a reshuffle and the chief exec has reappointed the technical director to manage the Audi F1 project. So I'd read it and then almost sense check to my own knowledge and then make an inference, right? And that's not to say I'm going to be right all the time, but that's where I'm kind of almost blending. I'm not reporting. The way I see my unique selling point is to almost blend fact with my opinion-based forecast. Because if I'm just, I mean, anybody can report the news, right? Well, this one said, and I feel like that's a pet peeve of mine for those internet journos that are on Twitter saying, this happened. I'm like, well, where's the value add in that? Like, I want to hear I want to hear a Windsor come on and say, well, Albon, for sure Albon's going to sign with Red Bull. And I'm like, well, why is he going to sign with Red Bull? What, how do you know that? And he's.
I hope he doesn't.
Well, yeah, I kind of hope he doesn't either. But the rationale is behind that. He's had a word with somebody in the know, and then obviously the Nvidia family are ties. So why wouldn't they want an Alex Albon in the jet? Particularly as Christian Horner's trying to work his way out of this situation and foster rapport with the 51%. So I'm trying to build a picture that makes sense, and ultimately that might be wrong. Like, nobody bats 1,000 with these predictions, but I'm trying to build the most likely scenario. And similar with Kimi Antonelli, we were talking about that on a shakedown a couple of weeks back. It's like it just makes Toto's going to want to like smash this next one out the park, isn't he? Just makes sense that he's going to want. If Kimi does an 8 out of 10 job this season in F2, he's a shoo-in for the Mercedes seat.
Do you both, after you've uploaded, released, and people have watched it, do you find that you sort of, because you mentioned Pete Windsor there, Cameron, do you find, both of you, Baxty and Cameron, do you find that you get other sort of notable names sort of sliding into your DMs and saying, well, I think you're right, or I think you're wrong, or you might be interested in this little bit of info I can feed you, and things like that?
That's not happened to me, but I've not been in the game long enough for that to happen to me. I'm sure Cameron
just other
has,
people sliding into your DMs, but we don't talk about that.
I don't have anyone sliding in my DMs.
It'll happen.
I can speak to. I think the only person that I speak to that has like decent knowledge and has access to the insider stuff is Peter Windsor. And he's almost like a mentor to me and a friend. And you'll see the interaction that we have. Like, we come at F1 from two very different perspectives, and he's like, tomorrow I'm going to talk with him, and I know for 100% when I start talking about Drive to Survive, he's going to tell me to stop blaspheming and talking rubbish. What are you talking about? What do you drive to what? Like, he even said, I asked him to rank his excitement the other day from 1 to 10. And he goes, well, it's a loaded question, Cam, because you didn't say 0. I don't have a Netflix subscription. What are you on about? So like he checks me all the time. And I suppose you just got, but you invite that, right? You invite that because, again, I know I'm acutely aware that I'm never going to bat 1,000. That Baxty does it all the time. What are you on about, Cameron? Like, have you thought about this? And that's the point for me. If it wasn't that, if I couldn't do that in content creation, I wouldn't be interested. I need that back and forth.
There's obviously been quite a lot to talk about in pre-season, but is there a new historical news item or a news item of some description in F1 that you wish you'd have had a microphone? Like, is there a period or a thing that happened in F1 that you wish, before you picked up a mic and became content creators? Is there something you wish you could have kind of picked up on and kind of got stuck into?
Mate, that's a sick question.
Baxty's smiling. He's smiling.
Gonna take this, Baxty.
Well, I started after Abu Dhabi 21, so I would have. I mean, if you dig through my Twitter, you might see some rather foul language tweets going on at the time. I would have loved to have been a fly in the wall, sort of 2007 with the whole Spygate thing, and then also 2009 with the whole Braun story. I would have loved to have been telling that story to viewers and been like, oh my God, this is just unbelievable what we're watching. And then the mid-season capitulation and everything else. And yeah, obviously the Braun documentary's done that incredibly well. And highly recommend watching for anyone that hasn't watched it yet. But yeah, those two kind of stick out. Abu Dhabi, I think if I'd had a YouTube channel at the time, I probably... Bonkers. I would have done well, but I think the videos would be bleeped almost exclusive, just beep, 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 beep.
I should actually repost my stream. Like I've watched it back 1,000 times now. My face, like I'm silent.
Oh, did you do a live stream during the race?
Oh, mate.
Oh, fuck, I need to go and find that.
I was just like, I've deleted it from the channel, but I was just like,
oh, have you?
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. The realization when he said unlapped cars can unlap themselves, I was like...
So why did you delete it?
Oh, that's a good question there. Getting techie. I thought, okay, how techie are we going to get on this YouTube thing? So YouTube...
This is on the record. You have to be completely honest.
Give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, eh?
Exactly.
I went through a phase when content creation is a journey, right? And I went through a phase where I thought that the way I was going to succeed in F1 YouTube was to do these very sexy, like 10 to 15 minute edited videos that kind of like almost documentary style that almost that told a really, really good story, a la Abu Dhabi, or trying to think why Mercedes are going to turn it round and nail red, but like just these very sexy stories that are layered and really interesting. Because at the time, the apex predator of F1 content was that type of video. Josh Revel, Driver 61 are all out there. Like Driver 61 is a £1 million business, just predominantly from making those videos. And you can go and check the numbers out on Social Blade if you don't believe me. So I thought that was my path. And to do that, what I didn't want on the channel, they call them VODs, don't they, Baxty? Like streamed videos that represent zero rewatch value. Because ultimately, the algorithm will look at my channel and it will do a scan and say, well, he's got all this dead weight there that nobody's watching, so I'm not going to recommend it. So I thought I'm going to scrap dead weight. Anything that's not an evergreen piece of content, I will take it down. I've got them somewhere, but I just wanted to make the channel super streamlined. That's why they went down. And I was probably a bit wrong with that. I probably, in hindsight, that Abu Dhabi in particular might get re-uploaded because I think I was a bit off the mark with my thesis there.
It's interesting actually. Today I listened to, I think, 3/4 of it. I was listening to Tasha and Mario's episode with Natural Paradigm on Quick Stop F1, and I think I heard right. I need to go and listen to it again so I don't undo myself here. But I think he recounted when he got into F1, because his mates dragged him to Indianapolis 2005.
100%. I think you're right. Yeah.
And he still got into F1 having only seen 6 cars start
I
that
don't
race.
think it was 05, you know. I want to say it's 06. I think you're ballpark. I think it might have been 06.
In
maybe they did
05 because it was 05 because it was the one race Schumacher won in 05 because obviously they'd had the massive come down from 04.
It was Ralph Schumacher and his Michelin tyres that crashed on the last corner.
Yeah.
But if it was 2005, kudos. That's a proper commitment to being an aero engineer that you can go to that race.
Bryson was always going to, the way his mind works, he was always going to fall in love with that stuff. Like he's just, you know what I mean? Just one of those types.
All right, so this is a curveball. I've only got 2 more questions for you. This is a curveball for you. Do you watch Formula E? And if not, just out of interest, why not?
Bloody Nora.
I've dabbled.
Mine's quick. Never watched a race. Because of the aforementioned thing, like we talked about time and limited bandwidth, right? I can only spread myself so thin. And for me I just don't have time. I don't have enough time for F1 by itself, right? To get as deep into it as I want, as far as like the bloody data and the quantums and the deltas between it. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't have enough time to consume all of the F1 stuff. So Formula E, sadly, is gonna. Yeah, I no chance. F2 is going to be interesting this year. I need to start covering that.
Yeah, I'm definitely watching it too.
Where am I going to get a time from for that, Steve? Do you know what I mean? But
Baxty's definitely going to watch F2 as well. So you've got a wingman. So for Formula E, Baxty, you said you dabbled.
I've watched it a couple of times because the BBC had it on occasionally, and you just be like, I'm bored. Let's watch this. And then I watched I think it was Mexico 22 because the 22-23 season. So I watched that, and I really enjoyed the qualifying with the knockouts and everything else. And I'd love Formula One to bring that in, though I don't think it would work because of the fact that it's you'd end up with one car so much faster than that they'd actually end up catching the other car, which kind of defeats the purpose of it. But I thought I just found it okay. I was like, it's interesting, but I didn't have I wasn't engaged enough to be like, right, I'm going to go and watch Formula E, because I was like, I watch Formula One. That's what I've been watching since 2007, and I've known about it for years. And as Cameron put it as well, bandwidth as well. I mean, I watch a lot of other sports. I love my football and my rugby and stuff, so I want to watch those. When you got throwing work and other hobbies like gaming and stuff, it's just you can't do it all. I've tried in the past, but
I think Formula E needs to fill that gap that you were talking about, Cameron, earlier, with the MMA and that content between Monday to Friday or whatever. The F1 wasn't doing it. MMA was. This is what you try to replicate or bring into it. And I think Formula E needs that. It needs that noise away from the track rather than it just being race weekend. Here's the result. We're now going to disappear for a couple of weeks and end up somewhere else and go racing again.
It's even longer than that, isn't it?
There are people.
We're always told print media is a sort of prehistoric sort of form of media for people to consume. But I think you have to think as a sport. I think you have to think of what type of headline would a tabloid pick up. And at the moment, I don't think Formula E makes those types of headlines. And I think there are things that they're doing internally that will change that from what we understand. But it just needs to sort of fill that gap. The gap is too long, and it needs to fill that gap to sort of create that interest from people that are interested in, I don't know, just a bit of fun in between, or a bit of controversy, or whatever.
Well, look at what went viral last week. It's the only thing I've ever seen that went viral at Formula E was that interview with Jeff Dodds when he basically offered to pay 250 grand.
Yeah.
And rightly or wrongly, whether you agree with him or not.
I think that was smart as well. Because there were people sort of having a pop at him about how could you concentrate? Probably fed into him. But how could you concentrate on something as grubby as sort of taking a shot at Formula One and Max Verstappen when you should just be concentrating on all the good things and climate change, everything positive around that Formula E does. And that's the problem. I think people need another story with Formula E, because there's half of the world that gets climate change, there's half of the world that doesn't get climate change. So there's sort of a large amount of people that aren't going to follow it, because all it is climate change, climate change, climate change. It's a sport. You've got to make it about the sport. And then I think, once you start making it about the sport, once you start making it about the rivalries or the things going in and around the paddock, or when they're not on the track or whatever, then I think you start to get more people interested. Jeff was absolutely right in sort of highlighting the fact that during a Formula E race, you don't know who's going to win necessarily, but Formula One you do. And the way to get that into journalists' mouth is to offer £250,000 charity bet. And I think hats off to him for doing that, to be honest, because he's trying to create noise. He's got to create noise away from the track.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think that the British print media would have gone, oh, we've got a British world champion in Formula E at the moment in Jake Dennis, but not a word. You didn't see anything from them. It was maybe got like a little column on the side or something. I didn't see anything from other than dedicated motorsport publications that spoke about it. It just nothing.
I think I have a crack at Formula One teams not doing their jobs properly, and I think I can certainly have a crack at Formula E teams not doing their job properly. They've got to. I hate this word narrative, but they've got to start creating stories of their own to create the interest in that on track action, because otherwise it's just about some electric cars going around a circuit, and that's not what sport is. Sport's everything.
You've just reminded me of a couple of things that have happened in Formula E, but not good. There was it Mahindra who created the AI assistant?
Yep.
Which is just one of the worst things I've ever. It's just like, you could just hire somebody to do that job. What was that? And then the other one was when you had
that's the problem, and this happens in Formula One as well. Is that Formula One and Formula E, they jump on the next bandwagon. First in Formula One, it's crypto. We're going to start, or NFTs. If you couldn't see that NFT was the biggest grift around, then there's something wrong with you, and you shouldn't be holding those positions. It was the same with the AI thing. Well, what can we do really cool around AI? Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll create blah 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 blah, and it will go viral, and everybody accepts it, and we'll get a pat on the back. Somebody actually come up with that idea, and worst of all, a group of people probably sign that off.
I can hear the meeting that happened. I've been in those meetings many times, and it's I don't know. Like, I'm going to go and delete all of Lucky Sun's NFTs that I've made. But
never. That will never be a thing.
No. One of the only reasons I like Baxty, I've dabbled with Formula E. I guess I think I would take a guess that most of their audience are people that aren't into Formula One and Formula E. Some of them might be, but I think it must be, people that have just aligned themselves now with Formula E because it aligns with their thoughts on what the world needs to do, and maybe they like Extreme E, which will become Extreme H if there's enough teams that don't leave it. But I think for me, it's because I kept seeing TikToks of Dan Ticktum swearing. I don't know if you've ever heard his radio. He is fucking brilliant. My favourite one was I can't remember the name of his engineer. Let's say his name was David.
Roberto, if you're on the intercom, tell my taxi to be ready in 15 minutes. I'm getting out of
here. That's Nigel Mansell energy there, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's worth. I watched all of their YouTube 15-minute series programs in the hope that was going to be on there. None of it was. It's like, oh, come on, that's the fun shit. That's the reason I actually like DTS. Which brings me on to my last question.
Don't do it, Steve.
Which is to DTS or not DTS? That is the question that I'm going to leave you with, because
this is so techie.
No,
this one is techie. Baxter, you go first, brothers. I'll try and formulate a good answer.
Cameron's heard me say this before, but I'm not to DTS, and it's not because I understand the value of DTS. Like, I'm not its target audience. I'm somebody that's already in there, that's versed, that loves it. DTS is designed to bring new people in, and that's what it's done. It's done an incredible job at doing that. do I think they could do a better job? Like, yeah, for example, if you're going to show Silverstone, don't park the F2 grid on your screen and then pass it off as Formula One. You know?
But why not, Baxty?
Well, because I mean, yeah, you're going to get people talking about it and going, "Oh, they made that mistake there." Like, but it's just like you want to create as broad a picture as possible, and you just want it to be truthful as well. Like,
be accurate.
You want it to be accurate. Yeah, you want to paint the realist picture.
But what does that matter though, Baxty? In the book, I understand, and I reacted similarly. More to. I think as F1 fans, we're so bloody anal about everything, and it's all got to be, as we said earlier, right? It's all got to be like the right number to 2 decimal places and 3 significant figures, and pi is 3.14. What like?
We're F1 engineers without being F1 engineers.
That's what I'm saying, Baxter. Yeah. Does it? So did you enjoy that Drive to Survive episode any less because they superimposed a picture of F2 at Silverstone instead of using the official F1 imagery? What does it matter?
I didn't watch it, but yeah.
I'll answer. So I watched a good few. I've watched about 4 episodes now. I haven't watched. I dip in and out, right? Like I'll pick and choose episodes historically. And I watched the Lewis episode, Leap of Faith, episode 6, and I thought that was God tier, primarily because they're showing us I'm interested in the story, so immediate buy-in. And I'm seeing all this behind the scenes footage, Lewis and George interacting I've never seen before.
And swearing.
Mate, you saw the tweet, right? Like I'm like, oh my gosh, they're being real people, not these.
There you go.
Not these PR focused drivers that just give cliche answers each and every single time. I saw Lewis's personality, like he's letting his hair down euphemically. Like I was like I could have watched hours and hours of that. I thought it was incredible. The back and forth, the friction between Lewis and Toto, whereas they're normally giving these SH1T answers that are just like, oh, I'm going to no, I want to see the real picture. So I thought that episode was amazing. And then I watched I thought the Nick DeVries episode is incredible as well. Again, showing us all this behind the scenes footage of Nick DeVries basically not fitting into the Red Bull machine as far as the working culture and then not performing. Oh my God. They showed you genuinely why he wasn't performing, and it like getting nailed by Piastri in Monaco, getting nailed by Bottas is over the radio saying, what is this dude doing in front of me? He's so slow. And then overtakes it. That episode is well worth a watch. But then I watched the Ferrari one, and I was like, "Oh God!" So they talked about Sainz's win at Singapore, and then I've done what Baxty just alluded to, because they didn't talk about the way that he used Norris as a stopgap.
That's important. Like I'm getting anal about something really small. But that was such an important part of the story of that race.
Yeah. It wasn't in there at all.
No.
Not at all.
And that irked me. So even though I'm criticising the F1 fan base for being too anal, that for whatever reason, that kind of, I felt like they should have somehow, you can't tell that story properly and tap into the rich tapestry of F1 without somehow saying that. That was a God tier move, and they needed to talk about that somehow.
I believe they don't talk about Oscar's sprint win as well at all through the series. I'm like, that was one of the stories of the year. I mean, I know it got overshadowed slightly by Max winning the championship in the same race, but that was actually a really good race, that sprint race. It was one of the few good ones we've ever had.
And it was a rookie.
And it was a rookie doing something incredible. And it was a really good drive.
I don't think they covered any sprint races, actually.
Yeah,
no.
But a sprint race is because they normally, and again, putting my editor cap on to tell a story properly. Like you can't. Do you know what I mean? The sprint, it's just a sprint.
Probably confuse the new viewers. What is this?
Yeah, it's
no, it's probably true, right? Especially the Americans. You're onto something there.
I saw someone tweeting about that clip with Nick DeVries on the boat in Monaco talking to Adrian Newey.
Oh God.
And someone was going, it's like really unfair. And brilliantly, Amanda Newey kind of replied to that person going, yeah, well, they didn't show the conversation we were having. I think a lot of people get confused, and it's easily done. You can get sucked into how people edit it. There's another clip with when they're doing Lando Norris talking to other teams, right? And there's a clip where he's sitting around the table with the media people and Piastri, and Zach Brown is sitting to his left. Camera's over there, so you're looking at, and they're cutting away to Zach Brown, who you're supposed to think is sitting there glaring at Lando, and then it cuts to Lando sitting there on his phone, not listening to anyone. They're all just cutaways, but the way they build it
clever.
into the edit,
It's clever.
But
I mean, it's really fucking clever, but it does exactly what it needs to do, which is it builds that
every
story that was never
series
there.
so far. There's always been parts of each episode or parts of the series that always focuses on the PR brief. All right, where you got the PR person telling, and it's the same with this McLaren one, where I think McLaren was doing terribly, questions of whether or not Norris was going to re-sign or whatever, and the PR is going, and so the narrative has got to be, the message has got to be that we're all working hard as a team, blah blah blah, just the usual sort of stale bullshit responses that don't affect anybody, and that's the typical PR, and that's sort of that controlling that narrative. And for as long as this goes on, I love it when Drive to Survive shows this, because for as long as this goes on, I know that there's an opportunity for lucky sons, because that's everything that fans don't want. They don't want to know that the narrative is controlled. They want to think that Lando's saying what Lando wants to say, and as much as you can tell that he's not saying what he wants to say because they give the same answers, you can tell that they're sort of controlled answers. You don't necessarily want to really know that the PR has told him to say it like that. Or when Toto's walking to his motorhome with the PR saying, what questions are they going to ask in the press conference today? Oh, it'll just be something about the upgrades or whatever. You don't necessarily want to know that you're prepared for those, because you want to think that Toto just sort of
is on the fly.
Exactly.
But Andy, I think you happen upon something that's genius there that Netflix are doing. They're almost saying what you see at the presser, whether that's drivers or teams, that's not the real. What we're showing you on Netflix, this is the real, right? And I think it's not entirely true. It's a tad. Netflix is a tad. Drive to Survive is a tad disingenuous, right? We all know they sandwich editing clips and all that other stuff, but I think it's quite clever. And you know what, Baxty and Steve, I think you miss an easier, more low-hanging plot that they didn't touch at all. Max Verstappen's record-breaking season. Not if you watch that and you're a brand new F1 fan, you wouldn't even know
who's Max.
You wouldn't know his name. I think that's stunning. Honestly, I think that's incredible.
Yeah, but it's not sexy. It's just like bloke wins almost every single race bar than 3. Everyone's bored to tears at hearing the Dutch national anthem every 2 weeks.
But I mean, they could have again, Eddie to cap on. Could they have talked about Miami was ridiculous, Monaco quali was ridiculous. Yeah, they could have. I think they could have pieced a story together. I mean, you could talk about that before you talk about the race for the vice champion. They had a whole episode on the final race for second place, didn't they? Weird.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I watch it because I can't remember last season usually, so it's quite a nice recap. And being a child or an adult with a mental age of about 14, I just quite like hearing drivers. That episode with Hamilton, I think that's the first time. It's definitely the first time I can recall him being on DTS more than a fleeting back shot, and it's him being as close to what I imagine is him being real and being a bit, kind of feisty and a bit like, yeah, fucking hell, let's just get the fuck on with this. Like,
stop dilly-dallying.
You said it exactly. Just talking like a normal person, a real person that you never get to see. And that, for me, all the other bullshit about DTS, which I agree with in most of the part, that's all I tune in for. I like hearing. I love Fred Vasseur. I think he's brilliant. I can't wait for Lewis and him to work together again. I think that's going to be electric. Yeah. But I like hearing these gladiators look and sound a bit like us.
Yeah.
but they are like us. Though,
but they're not allowed. But they're not allowed. But they're not allowed to get that across.
But
exactly.
But the way that you grow a sport is through access and relatability. Boxing and UFC. I mean, the way that they've done it is to you almost UFC in particular. You've got an unprecedented amount of access to the athletes and fighters, right? And that through COVID, they leveraged that to propel themselves to like ridiculous level. They were nowhere near pre-COVID where they are post-COVID. But meanwhile, in F1 Vale, it's all bottomed up.
Yeah, but UFC leads from the front, right? Dana White says it how it is.
Agreed.
Yeah, you listen to a Dana White press conference, he says exactly what he wants to say. You listen to a Dana White podcast, whatever podcast he's on, he says exactly what he wants to say. He does not give a fuck.
You know what?
I love it.
You know that Dana hasn't sat in front of a one-slide PowerPoint media plan like you see Lewis and George having to sit in that shitty little room with the guy, and you can see in the background he's got one slide, but he's got all the bullet points for today's talking points. Man, if I ever get drafted in to do that into Lucky Sons, I will fucking leave. In fact, I actually deleted PowerPoint off my computer today just so I never have to open it.
Still Keynote.
Here's the thing.
No, just on a techie level, PowerPoint needs 18 gigabytes.
Hey?
What the fuck for?
No.
I'm not even lying.
Jeez.
Yes. 18 gigabytes, people. Oh, you heard it here first on the record.
It's funny what you're saying about characters. I think there was a race last year where Alonso had an absolute stinker. I mean, he was terrible. It was the race before Brazil. I can't remember which one it was, but he was terrible. And in my space, we spent an hour talking about just Alonso. And people wanting to get in on him, and it's like, oh, he's a prick, and he's this, and then other people going, no, but he's a character, and we all love him for it. And it's just, and it's like, well, this is how you can tell that somebody is revered within this sport, that we can spend an hour talking about a driver who had a shit race, because people want to know what this guy's all about, and shouting GP2 engine at the home Grand Prix of your engine manufacturer, and
Baxty, tell me that we don't need more of that. This harks back to the old Gorgeous George anecdote back in the day, that Gorgeous George wrestling, again, but way back in the day, long before my time. But Gorgeous George had a word with Muhammad Ali when the world hated Muhammad Ali and he denied the draft and wouldn't go to Vietnam and all this stuff. And Gorgeous George
went to prison.
Yeah, exactly. Gorgeous George said to him, listen, people will pay more to come in the theatre and see you lose than they will to cheer you and see you win. And I think Alonso's the classic anti-hero. We need more, love him or hate him, right? But you're going to tune in to watch him. And I think F1...
Yeah, you go and watch a pantomime because you want to see the villain, right? It's not because of the great storyline or some sort of Peter Pan flying, whatever. You want the baddie. You want Captain Hook.
Invested.
And all sport needs that.
That is.
The villains and the good guys. It's like Steve and I.
But whom is whom?
Right, we'll leave that up to our many tens of followers who watch this.
We need to get
guys.
Steve, where's this going out? By the way, people need to follow and rate and subscribe and.
On VHS and vinyl.
The audio goes on cassette.
Well, Betamax.
Yep.
Well, wherever it's going out, if you're listening on a podcasting platform, follow, leave a 5-star review. This is Cameron F1 speaking, but again, you got to get the cheeky. If you don't say it, people won't do it, Steve.
Actually, we never a true word said in jest. We do have plans to do that kind of thing. We're just going to put stuff out on vinyl and cassette tape. Maybe not VHS. It's not. I would love to do it though. But you guys have been amazing. Thank you for taking your time out of your evening. It's still only just gone 9:30, so the night is a bit young. Baxter, you can line up the spaces, no doubt, in about half an hour's time.
Not tonight.
You guys probably don't need a plug, but if you just want to tell people where they can find you, I will put that on the screen when I do the edit.
Oh, you're a legend. I am Cameron F1 on the YouTubes and Cameron F1 TV everywhere else.
BAXTYBF F1 on YouTube, BAXTYB on Twitter. I do stream on Twitch occasionally as well, BAXTYB. So that's the best place to find me. Yeah.
Awesome. Unless there's anything else, Andy, I'm assuming not. So, Cameron F1 and Sir BAXTYB, you were on the record, and now we're off it. So, thanks very much, and see you later.
Appreciate it, guys. Well done.